Welcome to Purposely Peaceful. I'm your host, Jessica Rivera, a licensed marriage and family therapist and a quantum hypnosis practitioner. This podcast is where real life meets inner peace. You'll get honest conversations, practical tools, and soulful guidance to help you live with more clarity, calm, and purpose. Hi, friends. Welcome back. I had a little break last few weeks. A lot of times when I do an episode, it has a lot to do with something that I'm going through. And in this case, I have been a little resistant with things that I need to do or I need to focus on. And the reality is that life is just going full speed ahead and I'm trying to just get through it. So just in case you needed to hear it, because I know I need to hear it, is that it's okay to find yourself in between a hard place and a rock, or whatever that saying is. I actually don't know if that's correct. Resistance feels like you're stuck in the middle. You know you need to move, but you're stuck. You could be frozen in fear, confused. We all have things that we're trying to do, but at some point or another, we're likely to hit a speed bump, and it throws us off course. So let's talk about all the ways resistance can sneak up on us and how to move through it with more grace so that we can focus on being more in a state of peace. Here's my interpretation of what resistance means, and I'm using it in a psychology type of term, not a science term. Resistance occurs when people unconsciously use defense mechanisms to avoid difficult thoughts, feelings, or memories, especially when they're trying to heal. When people intentionally or unintentionally avoid certain topics, behaviors, or make excuses because they're avoiding something within themselves. So if you're resisting, it means that you're probably not having the best time of your life. Resistance is really uncomfortable. You know what you need to do, you know what you want to overcome, or you just aren't quite going through something as fast as you had hoped. I'd like to think that I've made a good amount of progress with my resistance. So let me share with you how resistance and I go way back. For most of my life, I've been internally fighting with myself with who I want to be or what I need to get done. I remember I dreaded school every day up until maybe third grade. I never wanted to leave my mom's side. She was my comfort in a world that was always a little too overwhelming and cold. My resistance always kicked up a notch at school, having to do a project, having to read aloud in the class, or worse, having to talk or perform in front of other students. It was the worst. At least it felt like it at the time. This little part that I'm sharing was just elementary school. It's not including all the other parts of my life. It's funny to think about how talking or reading aloud was probably one of the worst things that I could ever do. Talking in front of other people was definitely embarrassing, whether it went well or not. Even in my early 20s, when I was in college, I'd feel my stomach turn in knots as if I was about to go on a roller coaster. And a lot of times it was just the thought of the presentation. I wasn't even up there doing anything yet. Now you're hearing me talk here, and technically, anyone who wants to can listen. And that is just some of the scariest shit ever. But here I am doing it. So I'm now doing the thing that I thought was the scariest thing that I can do, which is pretty wild when I think about it. Anyways, so changing gears a little bit. So recently I went out to lunch with a close friend and we were talking about the podcast, and she mentioned that I had talked about doing a podcast long before I had remembered that I had spoken about it. And I was a bit shocked. I thought to myself, I mentioned it back then? Why don't I remember? Well, because my resistance was so strong that I didn't even give myself a chance to allow a thought like that to stick around. I had shoved it down so far that at some point I'd allow it to cross my mind here and there in 2020 and 2021. At that time, I must have put it on my vision board. But again, I probably felt like that was too scary. And so I just let it fade into the background as if it had never been a thought or a feeling that I had had. But it persisted, right? This is my resistance of like wanting to do something but not doing it. And when we moved about a year ago, I was unpacking my stuff, and maybe it's been more than a year now, but when we moved a year ago and I was unpacking, I came across my vision board. And I didn't even notice it at first, but I kind of set it aside on my desk. I was just staring off one day, and I guess I was looking at my vision board, and it caught my attention, that little podcast symbol. And I thought, oh, I guess I really did want to have a podcast. Why? Ugh. Everyone and their mama has one. What could I share that could be of any value to anyone? And so I moved on. I didn't give it a lot of thought. Luckily for me, I saw someone post on Facebook that they wanted to start a mastermind group. They were struggling with accountability. And so I jumped on it. I didn't give it a lot of thought. I just said, you know what? I'll go for it. I'll just write blog posts or something just for myself, for my accountability and the things that I dream that I want to do one day. And a couple of months in, inspired by their commitment and everything that they were doing, I thought, you know what? I might as well do a podcast. If I'm already coming up with the subject, how hard is it going to be to record it? And after a few months of learning the ropes, I published my first 3 episodes. And for the most part, I have been posting weekly episodes ever since. A little inconsistent sometimes, but I always come back around. That's a very short story of how my resistance has been going on for years about something that I felt called to do, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. And there was a lot of inner work that I had to do to get me to this other side of resistance in this example. But for the sake of time, I'll share more about it some other time. So let me share a few of the things that I did to start overcoming resistance. Resistance can also show up in all kinds of different ways, not just like the obvious thing that's right in front of you. Like in my case, I felt like it was right in front of me, but I wouldn't allow it to be there permanently because it was just such a crazy idea that I would have to like shove it so far down that I'd forget that I even wanted it, which is kind of crazy now that I think about it. But anyway, so resistance can show up in so many different ways. And it's that feeling that you keep wanting to ignore, or the bad habit that you just got to quit, but can't really seem to get yourself to actually do it. Maybe it's your imposter syndrome keeping you from what you actually want to do. Whatever it is, it's worth noticing. So, what can we do? Name it. Start noticing and then get to the point where you can name it. And that's where I think that I was really oblivious in my own journey was that I was in super duper denial. I was going round and round with resistance because I just couldn't admit to myself that that's what I wanted. I guess it felt a little egotistical at the time. I don't see it like that now. I believe that I have to have a healthy sense of ego to put myself out there, but I don't feel egotistical because I really do feel that this podcast is just for anybody who wants to hear it, who needs a little reminder or wants to look at something in a different point of view, and that's it, right? I don't expect the whole world to listen to it. It's just for the few that want to. So I encourage you to name it. Whatever it is that you keep resisting or fighting with, identify if it's resistance that you're avoiding something, or is it the resistance to admit something to yourself? There is a subtle difference between the two. To be a little more clear, one of the things that you can do is get specific. What is this block or resistance getting in the way of? What does it bring up in you? Does it trigger fear? Does it bring up fear of failure or even success? Because success scares people too. Sometimes we don't want to admit it to ourselves, but we don't want to acknowledge certain things. And if you're wondering if it's uncomfortable, yeah, it is. But that's the point. And this is where we start to make peace with discomfort. All the most valuable lessons involve some level of discomfort, whether it's learning to accept love after heartbreak or finally doing what you've been dreaming about. While discomfort is obvious when we're going through hardship, it also appears in subtle ways, like when I had to learn how to control my words when I was angry. Yeah, I had some things I wanted to say. Or when life throws you a curveball. We understand that things will happen, even if we can't predict exactly what they will look like or feel like. Since we know that surprises or unexpected events will eventually come, we can cling to the understanding that helps us return to a state of peace. There's peace in knowing that time will pass. Times will change one way or another. And this is how we start to make peace with the way things unfold in life. We aren't helpless. No matter how uncomfortable, we always have the power to take action. Taking action doesn't mean you'll do drastic and dramatic things. I mean, you could if you want to, but what it means is to take small, adjustable steps, these little tiny things that you can do. Maybe you want to go back to college. Maybe start with browsing careers that you're interested in, or booking a call with a college counselor just to get some information to see how it would look like. You don't have to know everything. Sometimes we're just gathering information that's going to help us become more clear. I changed my major like 4 times in college. Maybe you'll be lucky enough to know what you want right off the bat. But if not, it's okay. I learned a lot about what I didn't want. Or it could be as simple as just turning off the TV at a certain time in the night, or reducing how many cups of coffee you're drinking. Whatever it is, look at the big picture and figure out what would be the first little step that you need to do in order to progress forward. Another thing that you could try is to become one with that which you resist. So let me explain what I mean by that. You know that saying, what you resist persists? I hate to burst your bubble, but from my point of view, it's true. You could hate something, or you could be in a situation that you don't wish to be in. You want to be successful now, not later, etc. Whatever the case. But you wanting something so badly, feeling stuck, like you can't get there fast enough, this type of inner conflict is resistance. When you're in a loop, you get stuck emotionally, mentally, and perhaps even physically. In all actuality, the time that passes by, it's a drag because it's unpleasant and uncomfortable, and all it gets you is more and more of what you don't want. So if you don't want to be in this situation, but that's all you can think about, guess what? You're going to be in that situation a lot longer because you're stuck in it. You're in the loop. And this is where you have to learn how to break out of that. And so when I say become one with that which you resist, what I'm really saying is become one with the resistance. You and the resistance are not separate. It is a part of you. So instead of fighting with it, let it be your friend. In order to stop resistance, we need to become one with it, which to me means you allow for however the experience or position you're in to be just as it is. Don't attach emotions to it. Send the hate, dread, anxiety, fear, send it outside. Let it hang out there while you learn to accept that where you are is just a moment in time. It will pass. You can pass it miserably or with purpose, with meaning, and with intention. Of course, this is your choice. You have to find the purpose in the place that you are. You have to find the meaning by trying to identify why this is good for you. Yeah, even if you don't like it. Remember, just for the time being, it's not forever. And set an intention. What do you intend to do with this experience? Is it to learn, to grow, to never repeat again, to experience a new place, whatever it may be? The way I see it, instead of fighting with resistance and going into some internal battle, melt into the resistance. Allow yourself to be one with it. Look at it as if you are a team. You're not against each other, you're actually for each other. The only way through resistance is by moving through it and with it. When you finally get to the other side of that experience, you'll see that its hold over you was only temporary. Thoughts and feelings that you gave your power to, but they were necessary for your growth. Follow the path that leads to overcoming hard times and stubborn thoughts. Part of this process is learning to go with the flow of it, the flow of life. Learn to love the tough experiences, become one with it, and knock that resistance to the curb. When you go with the flow, you let time unfold naturally and create the miracle of things coming to you sooner than you expect. The path to inner peace is realizing that resistance is optional. I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for listening.